what if I told you that being smart isn't really about acing a test or having a high GPA? Seriously, what if some of your most normal, everyday habits, the ones you might even think are kind of weird, are actually signs of a really powerful mind? Okay, let's get into this, because we're going to uncover some fascinating psychological patterns that science actually links to high intelligence.
So, I'll just ask you straight up. Could your habits, the way you think about things every single day, be the secret signals of how smart you are? That's the big question we're digging into. And you might want to stick around, because you could end up seeing yourself in a completely new light.
For the longest time, we've had this very rigid idea of intelligence. It's all about test scores, grades, how much you can memorize. But what we're talking about here is a whole different ballgame. We're moving away from that old school way of thinking and looking at something way more subtle. The kind of intelligence that shows up in our daily routines, our patterns of thought, and just our natural curiosity. It's a much bigger, more interesting picture.
Okay, so first up, let's tackle our first hidden sign. And with this one, we're basically flipping a common complaint on its head. Let's talk about the productive overthinker. Now, this isn't about being anxious. It's about having a mind that's always running simulations, analyzing, and trying to find a better way forward.
So yeah, if anyone's ever told you that you think too much, well, this one's for you. And here's the key difference. A lot of people see a situation and just react, right? It's impulsive. But highly intelligent people, they tend to analyze everything. They don't just react, they reflect. They'll look at it from different angles, searching for a deeper meaning. That little pause is actually a powerful engine for complex problem solving.
And yep, there's a scientific name for this. It's called cognitive reflection. It's basically the ability to hit pause on your first gut reaction and really think things through. So that tendency to overthink, it isn't a flaw at all. It's your brain running all these different scenarios to find the best possible outcome. That's a huge sign of strategic intelligence.
All right, let's move on to our second sign, which really builds on this idea of deep processing, the intellectually hungry. This is for anyone out there who is constantly asking why.
It's all about having a curiosity that just never seems to run out.
So, do you ever find yourself falling down those internet rabbit holes, suddenly becoming an expert on some totally random topic? Or maybe you're that person who's always asking, but why do we do it that way? Well, that's not a lack of focus. That's your brain's powerful drive to build a better, more complex understanding of the world. It's your intellectual hunger showing.
In fact, psychologists have a name for this too. It's a personality trait called openness to experience. And get this, research from the University of London actually found a clear link between people who score high on this trait and people who have higher IQs. So that constant need to know more, it's a well-documented sign of a mind that's always looking for new information to grow.
All right, on to our third sign. And this one might be the most counterintuitive one we've talked about yet. We're going to explore the power of silence. Meet the active observer. This is all about the intelligence you find in listening, not just talking.
So what does this actually look like in the real world?
Think about it. The smartest person in the room isn't always the one talking the most. A lot of the time, they're the one who's just listening. But they're not just hearing the words. They're processing the tone of voice, the body language, the unspoken things happening between the lines. They're basically gathering data that almost everyone else is missing. This skill is called active observation. And it's about so much more than just hearing things. It's real-time data analysis. To do it well, you need the brain power to process all that information and the emotional awareness to interpret it correctly. It's intelligence in its most receptive and maybe its most powerful form.
Okay, now for a really fascinating one. Our fourth sign is all about embracing uncertainty. We're calling this one the power of doubt. And it might sound weird, but doubting yourself can actually be a sign that you're incredibly smart.
Let's break that down for a second. This is so important. Real intelligence isn't about pretending you know everything. It's about being deeply aware of what you don't know. That self-awareness, which some call intellectual humility, is exactly what keeps your mind open to learning new things and, changing your mind when you're wrong. And this is the perfect contrast. On one hand, you have that intellectual humility we just talked about, but on the other, you have something called the Dunning-Kruger effect. That's a cognitive bias where people who know the least about a subject tend to be the most confident in their own expertise. The big difference here is flexibility. Humility keeps you learning, keeps you curious. False confidence traps you and actually stops you from learning anything new.
Okay, let's move on to our fifth and final sign. This one is all about where intelligent people tend to recharge their batteries. finding comfort, and even a kind of power in being alone. So I'll ask you, do you actually like being by yourself?
I mean, really think about what that time alone gives you.
So, a study in the British Journal of Psychology found something pretty wild. Highly intelligent people often say they're less happy with constant socializing. Now, it's not because they're antisocial, it's because their brains need that downtime to connect the dots, to synthesize all the different ideas they've been taking in. For them, being alone isn't boring or empty. It's where the real deep thinking and creativity happens.
So as we start to pull all of this together, if you're someone who productively overthinks, who's always curious, who's more of a quiet observer, who doubts yourself, and who really enjoys your own company, you're not weird. You're just wired for a deeper, more complex way of thinking.
And here it is, your blueprint. I want you to think of these 5 things not as quirks, but as your own personal toolkit. Overthink productively to find better solutions. Stay curious so you never stop learning. Observe actively to understand what's really going on. Embrace doubt to stay humble and open-minded. And value your solitude to give your amazing mind the space it needs to do its best work.
And that leaves us with one last question for you to think about. After hearing all of these hidden signs, I really want you to consider